Carmelo Anthony, Rajon Rondo, LaMarcus Aldridge, amongst others. Chop it or drop it, Matt. Carmelo is the best of the bunch.
Chop it. Yes, I agree. And I think the only reason why he didn't re-sign with the Lakers is because they have such an older team and they needed to get younger. But Melo's still at about 13.5 points and about 4 rebounds. You look at someone like Boston, they were expecting to have Gallinari. He's going to be out for the season now. I think it'd be a great fit there, possibly a Brooklyn fit. But he still has more game, and I hope that he finds a home.
I'm going to drop it because I'm like, I don't want to have to rank him. He's already great. He's a great in the game, so I'm dropping it.
B?
38% from three-point range last year. He could fit in the league somewhere. The Lakers, frankly, could use a 38.3-point shooter.
Score. Yep. I'd be hypocritical to say that I liked Gallinari and then be like, but I don't want Carmelo. I mean, you're talking about the same kind of skill. It's basically someone who can come in and make an open shot and has a history of doing that. Gallinari certainly does in his career. Carmelo, more so, scoring champ, all of that. So I do worry, though, can Carmelo accept a really limited role? Because we're not talking about him as the sixth man. We're just not.
Right.
So what, how much does he play and how much does he embrace that?
So I was worried about when Danilo comes back, how does Carmelo accept that he might only have 5-10 minutes a night? Now I think it's a little bit of a moot point. Like, he might play 20 minutes a night just to give Tatum and Brown some bit of a break. And so I'm more on board than I was probably a week ago. And I kept saying, like, you had to be committed to Carmelo the full year because of the way the tax works. And I think now more than ever, you're just like, okay, if you'll play for the veteran minimum, bring him on board and figure it out. And the East is a bit of an arms race right now. Every bit helps, and even if he doesn't play, as long as he's okay with being a veteran leader, then it'll work out.
All right, I love this story. According to a report from Brandon Robinson, the Celtics have interest in signing Carmelo Anthony. After Danilo Gallinari tore his meniscus, Melo scored 13 points per game with the Lakers last season and has been an improved three-point shooter late into his career. So, Mike Felger, how do you feel about Carmelo Anthony?
I'm more curious about you because you're more of an NBA guy.
Yes.
I'm a no. I mean, I'm a yes for the content.
Yeah.
As a talk show host.
Right.
Okay, bring me the content because he is internal strife waiting to happen, polarizing, strong opinions. So, like, as a talk show host, all day long. As a basketball fan of the Celtics, I don't need him. The Celtics, and I'm not, but the Celtics don't need him. Celtics don't need that guy. I mean, sure, they could use more shooting off the bench. You couldn't. But if Gallinari gets healthy, I'm sorry. I think you've solved it there. And heck, even without that, you were 2 wins away. So, no, there's too much risk even with this guy at his stage of his career, Mike.
I would say 7 years ago, absolutely not. Don't do it. But this Carmelo Anthony, yes, I like the idea. Look, he was out of basketball for a while, and we thought he was done. Came back to Portland, really acquitted himself nicely with the Trailblazers, then goes to the Lakers, a stacked team, we thought, with LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. He was not the problem with the Lakers. The Lakers had much bigger issues. Carmelo Anthony in this role, off the bench, shooter, not counted on to be a consistent guy for you, is a really good option. And I'm going to tell you what, Mike Felger, not only is he good content for Felger and Maz, you will watch him. You will root for him. He is a good teammate. He's a thoughtful guy. He is. He's a thoughtful guy. Players love him.
Yeah.
And I think what you said, they don't need him. Okay, he's listed as 6'8", which has always confused me. Because if you see him stand next to somebody else who's 6'8", he kind of towers over him.
Yeah,
he's a big,
bigger than
he's
that.
a big 6'8", and he can shoot, and he's tough.
He's tough?
He is tough.
He plays defense?
Okay. But Gallinari.
So then where's the toughness come out?
Listen, Gallinari doesn't play defense.
I'm not calling Gallinari
tough.
But
he's tough around the basket. He's hard. You don't wear him down. He can score inside. He can score outside as well.
I would worry about.
He's physical.
I just think he stood for too many of the wrong things for volume, score, big offensive numbers. In his 16 years, Mike, you know how many playoff series he's won?
You told me earlier. I would have been surprised by this if you hadn't told me.
3 playoff series wins.
Including one over the
years.
Celtics.
Yeah, it was one over at the end of the Garnett thing. Like that one shouldn't even count. He's one of the biggest losing players in NBA history, as far as I'm concerned.
I think he's been in some bad situations.
And I just think he's too much about the scoring. A Hondo, we used to call it on the playground. He's a ball hog and a shooter and a scorer, and that's all that he is. He has just as many. I think he has just as many turnovers per game as assists per game in his career. He's just not a good all-around basketball player. And I worry about what he would do to Tatum.
better than you think. And I would think at this stage of his career, he's accomplished a lot. He's been on these, he's got an Olympic gold medal. He's won a national championship.
Please, I'm so sick of hearing
I'm saying,
that.
but he's got all this stuff. So I think what he really wants now, he's never won a championship. He would like to be a part of a championship team. So all the issues that you brought up when he was in New York or at times in Denver, I don't think those issues are there anymore.
Take this for what it's worth. Quickly, the Felger and Mavs Brown checkmark sourcing tells me that Brad Stevens has always been a big fan of Carmelo. Brad Stevens wanted Carmelo several years ago. Danny did not want him. Okay, now Danny's gone. Maybe that opens the door. Wick, we hear, is not so hot.
Come on, Wick, get on board. It's going to be a good addition to the team.
Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. ESPN put out their NBA offseason survey from a panel of 15 NBA coaches, scouts, executives, and the Celtics by far received the most votes when the panel was asked which team had the best offseason. Boston got 6 votes, and no other team had more than 2. Carrying the Load is presented by the
considered to be a very good and productive offseason for the Celtics. How much of a loss will this be?
Well, I think it's significant given the injury, the timing of the injury, and the duration of rehab. Rehab from a torn ACL is typically 9 to 12 months. It stinks that this happened late in the offseason for Gallinari and the Celtics because the market has moved. We're already 2 months into free agency, and there aren't a lot of good players available. And also, with this being a late August injury, the Celtics will now wait. Their doctors will let the swelling go down on Gallinari's knee, so they might still wait a little while for the surgery. So he's likely to miss all of the regular season and most, if not all of the playoffs. And so it's unfortunate for Gallinari. It's also tough because at this late stage in free agency, it's almost impossible for the Celtics to replace a player of Gallinari's caliber, which is why I think Sam Hauser will get an opportunity.
And I don't mind that. Like, I would rather the first chance go to the guys you have in-house, and whether that's Hauser getting thrown a couple of minutes and seeing what he can do. And, like, defensively, I don't know if he can hold up, but, like, I know he can shoot the lights out of the ball. And so give him a chance to get out there. And Grant Williams now, we thought he would get a squeeze on the minutes. Maybe he gets a chance to go out there and sort of reaffirm that what we saw last season wasn't a fluke, that he can go out there and be a 3-and-D guy and play some minutes at the 5. And, maybe Jason Tatum slides up to the 5. I wouldn't want to see the Celtics overreact. The other thing to keep in mind here, and the thing to keep in mind throughout the season, is going to be the Celtics are already $20 million over the luxury tax line. Every dollar spent is like $4.50 spent. So whether it's Carmelo or anybody else, you're going to pay a premium to bring in another player, and you have to be committed to they're going to help you. They're going to be worth that, what's essentially $10 million in cap space. And so you just got to be diligent with how you proceed. You still have a rotation with Malcolm Brogdon that is probably 9-10 deep. And so as much as you will miss Gallinari sort of spelling guys at that 4 and the 5 spot, it's not the end of the world.
Ryan, one area where I think maybe we're overlooking, and you can weigh in on this from a team building standpoint, is just having fresh blood. I mean, when you return a team that had a lot of success, I think in all sports, it's good to inject new people there just so there isn't any sort of complacency. So while I don't think that Gallinari was going to be the difference between not winning a title and winning a title, is what they have now enough? Did they make enough change if Malcolm Brogdon, by and large, is the only real veteran that will be seeing any sort of significant playing time that's a newcomer?
I think they probably did, DJ. I mean, keep in mind, this team was up 2-1 in the NBA Finals. They were leading Game 4 of the Finals with 5 minutes to go, and then the series flipped in favor of Golden State. So Boston was right there. I mean, the Celtics are right on the precipice of winning a title. Usually when you're that close, you don't need major moves. You need minor tweaks, which is what I thought they did this offseason, and maybe more than minor tweaks, adding Brogdon and Gallinari. So I think what Brad Stevens and his staff are likely to do is go into the season, see if Sam Hauser can give them anything. Keep in mind, guys, we're talking about a team with potentially the deepest and best wing rotation in the league. Gallinari's a bigger wing, but you have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams. Marcus Smart is a bigger guard who can play some wing, especially alongside Malcolm Brogdon, who's another big guard. So this is a deep team. This is a talented team. And to Chris's point earlier, I think with the luxury tax issues combined with the lack of available talent in the marketplace, they're likely to go into training camp and see how it goes without Gallinari.
And the only thing I would say is, so you think about Jason Tatum playing 3,714 minutes last year. I would love to bring that number down. As much as Tatum is a hooper and wants to be out there, I do think you have a luxury of, if you have someone you can throw out there, whether it's a Gallinari, whether it's just Sam Hauser playing 5 to 10 minutes a night. So I want them to develop that talent and figure that out. And so give Sam the first crack, give Luke Cornett a chance in camp. And if you just don't feel comfortable with your depth and if the East is just so beefed up, then you look around at your options. But I just think you're not going to scramble to cover your 8th or 9th man right now.
If you do need to make some sort of move to bring in a replacement for Gallinari, I've been kind of wondering anyway, why is Derek White still here? When you bring in...
Whoa.
No, are we pushing back on... I mean, I think that Derek White's a good player, but I think that when you bring in Malcolm Brogdon, you thought, all right, somebody's going to be expendable here, and maybe for a day we were thinking maybe Marcus Smart, but it's clearly not going to be that. Do the Celtics have guys on their roster that you could dangle to bring in somebody that could replace Gallinari?
I don't think that's something they'll do early in the season, DJ. I think it's something that if they were to do that, they'd more likely to do it in February around the trade deadline. This is a deep and talented team in the backcourt and on the wing. They're able to overcome this injury to Gallinari, maybe better than any team in the league is able to overcome an injury to a rotational player. The Celtics are the preseason favorite on the betting market. So I think, again, Brad Stevens is more likely to take a measured approach to see what Sam Hauser can give them, to see if Grant Williams can expand his game, to see how the minutes are going and the distribution is going and the load that Tatum and Brown have to carry if they're able to carry it through the first 30 or 40 games of the regular season. So I think this is a team that will make minor tweaks, and a lot of the available talent, guys, frankly, is past their prime. I'm talking about guys like Carmelo Anthony, LaMarcus Aldridge. Those guys are in their late 30s. Those aren't silver bullets who will help this team win a championship. So I think Brad Stevens and his staff are more likely to wait and see how the first half of the season plays out before making any big moves.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, so I think like Derek White is a little bit of a forgotten man. Like they get Malcolm Brogdon and we say, oh, now you got Marcus and Brogdon, they can rotate those minutes. But like Derek White was pretty much like their guy. They went in and gave up a lot to get him. Romeo and Josh Richardson and the first round pick, the swap, all that. I think we're like forgetting that the versatility they have will allow them to play up a little bit. And again, if Jason Tatum has to play some 4 and 5 minutes, that's fine. And so I don't think it's like a necessary scramble right now. They still have enough depth. It's just every piece helps to limit the wear and tear on those guys. And after watching Tatum wear out a little bit at the finish line, every piece you can have is important.
So, Ryan, if you're the Celtics, do you hold on to Carmelo Anthony's number at least? Do you consider him? Do you wait and see? Do you let Sam Hauser have a crack at it? Because if he's still available now, I imagine he'll probably be available later.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if the Celtics bring in some of those guys for workouts. Keep in mind, as free agents, they have no restrictions, whether it's Carmelo, Anthony, LaMarcus Aldridge, or someone else. Boston can bring him in, and Ime Udoka and his staff can spend some time with the player. I think that's especially important when you're talking about a veteran former star like Carmelo Anthony. How is he going to accept his role? I think, frankly, he's accepted it pretty well the last 3 years between Portland and the Lakers. Will he do that in Boston? Those are some of the most difficult players at times to manage, guys, from an organizational perspective. Are the aging former superstars who aren't superstars anymore? That can be a challenge. So I think if you're Ime Udoka and his staff, you'd want to meet with Carmelo. You'd want to meet with LaMarcus Aldridge if those are two of the guys they're looking at. But probably before you get to that point, you want to look at Sam Hauser, Fiando Cavangeli, Bruno Caboclo, and some of the guys that you and Chris mentioned in the intro. You want to see what those guys can do. And to your point, DJ, if those players aren't good enough through your preseason workouts and in training camp, maybe you can bring in Carmelo or Aldridge or another veteran later on.
And let's remember the relationship that Ime and LaMarcus Aldridge have. There was a guy that they brought to San Antonio, and Ime was there at that point, and they do have that, and then with Brooklyn. So I just think there shouldn't be a rush to do this, but every time, like even if it's watching the Cavs go out and get Donovan Mitchell, and you're not going to make a move of that caliber, right? But it's going to be an arms race, and it's going to be tough just to be in the top 6, and every night's going to be a war. So everybody does matter. So I do think the Celtics have to consider those options, but give your young guys a chance here early at the start of the year.